6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
Hi everybody, welcome to Sunday Night Stories, brought to you by 6 Feet Apart Productions. We're really looking forward to our show tonight. We've got 4 incredible, experienced, talented storytellers for you. They're each going to tell a 10-minute story to celebrate Father's Day. I hope you all had a lovely Father's Day, by the way, if you were able to see your fathers or contact your fathers in any way. And happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and stepfathers, I would say, as well. So this is a storytelling show, and so it's storytelling with no notes, a bit like the Moth. It's not stand-up comedy, and there are no rants and probably no X-rated language, but we can't guarantee that, so just beware of any little ears listening. So today, unfortunately, my dad is 5,000 miles away in England, so I didn't get to actually visit with him, but I did get to see him. I had a little bit of a telephone conversation, which is quite challenging with my dad because he is a technophobe. But he just actually came into the 21st century. He got hold of an iPhone, finally has got an iPhone. And so my younger sister, the Buddhist nun, who is actually more tech than the rest of my family put together, she was able to send him a message on WhatsApp to say, do you want to have a conversation? And he wrote back to her on WhatsApp saying, I don't have WhatsApp. So that was a bit challenging. So then we were able to talk to him. We contacted his wife, on her WhatsApp, and then we were able to have a phone conversation. And we were getting on really well, and it was really nice to see him finally. And at one point he said to me, it's really good I've got this new phone, because now I can hear you talking in inappropriate detail by texting in the pod box. I had absolutely no idea what texting in the pod box was. Luckily, the Buddhist nun, who's obviously tuned into the universe here, she said, oh, Claire, he means your podcast. So I said, oh, okay. So then he said, I want to hear it now. I want to get it. So he brought up his phone and brought up what he thought. I have no idea what he brought up, but what he told us was a podcast app. And then he was just thumping his finger on the screen. And then something obviously went right, or wrong, because then he brought up a podcast that was a man talking. No idea. And then he couldn't turn it off, and it was just really loud. We couldn't talk to each other. We were trying to describe to him where the volume button was on an iPhone, and he just couldn't get it. He was showing us the phone. He was looking at the side of the phone and the other side of the phone. And literally for 10 minutes, we then couldn't talk to him because all we could hear was this man on some other podcast talking. Luckily, we were saved from the nightmare hell of my dad listening to swearing at this podcaster by coming in to tell him that supper's ready. She took off the phone off him like he was a small child. And I must admit, in terms of technology, he is a bit like a 2-year-old. So that was my conversation with my dad today. Now, on to our show. So our first storyteller tonight is a nationally acclaimed public speaker and communications coach, and she's based out of San Jose. All the rest of our speakers, so I should say they were actually a little bit earlier than normal. Normally we come on at 7:30 Pacific time, and we're at 5 o'clock Pacific time. So if you missed it and are watching the replay, that's why. And all our storytellers are from the East Coast, except for this storyteller who's in San Jose. She's a lead instructor with the Moth and was featured as one of the top change makers at TED Talks in New York City. She's the creator of the Barbershop Stories, which are storytellers performing true tales in barbershops and salons all around New York City. So you get a lovely haircut at the same time, I expect. She's the founder of Fraser's Edge, which offers programs to develop leadership potential through storytelling. Now, I always like to try and wheedle out of our storytellers something that not many people know. So I was able to ask this person. She said that her twin brother has Down syndrome, and so she's literally 1 in a million. She loves being a twin, and apparently has spent her entire life, ever since she was a baby, wiggling her brother's ears. Let's hope he was as thrilled as she was about it. So I'm delighted to present someone who we think is a 1 in a million storyteller, Dawn Fraser.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello and welcome everybody to Father's Day. It is such an honor to be here today, sharing with you my story. So imagine it's a Saturday morning, I'm about 14 years old, and I can hear my dad on the side of the field yelling, "Dawn, just keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. Head up, head up." I'm running as fast as I can after this soccer ball to see if I can finally score a goal. I shoot, I miss, but it's okay. We keep on going at it. I love these days. My dad is my soccer coach and I am a tomboy. So between the two of us, this is like the perfect combination. It didn't matter if it was basketball, if it was soccer, if it was track and field. I wanted to do sports. If the boys wanted to race me, I was down. And if the girls wanted to race me, I know that the game was already won because I was just at it. And this was a perfect match between me and my dad, me wanting to be the athlete, my dad wanting to be a coach. The only challenge with this particular moment in time, me being 14 years old on my dad's soccer team, is that I'm really fast, but I'm not coordinated. Every single time I try and shoot the ball in basketball, I miss. Every single time I try and kick the goal, I miss. But I'm fast and I'm slick. So instead, my dad thinks maybe we should put her as a defender, not as a striker. So he sets me all the way in the backfield where I'm defending the goal. And this works. This works for quite some time during this season until the day that I decide that I'm going to go directly after one of the people who's attacking the goal. I slide, I land on my wrist, and I break it. And that is not great. Not only does it hurt, but the problem is because I'm in so many sports, my body is essential, and my track and field coach is not happy with this result. He says to me one day, "All right, Dawn, look, you're really fast, you're really good, but if you're going to play sports, you're going to have to choose. Is it going to be track and field, or is it going to be soccer?" And I tell him, "Well, why can't I do both?" And they said, "Because you're doing stupid things like breaking your arm or playing other sports. You have no future in soccer. You have a future in track and field." And so I say, okay, but I don't want to disappoint my dad. My dad's my coach. My dad's kind of crushing it. But I have to do what I have to do. So one day when we're at at soccer practice, excuse me, I go to my dad and I tell him that I think I need to stop being on his team. And I leave. And I can tell he's disappointed. I feel disappointed. But I also know that I'm not going anywhere with soccer. And my dad is a really, really good coach. Later on in the season, he actually gets promoted to be the coach for the select team, the All-Stars of San Jose, California. I'm not on his team, but I'm now starting to run track and field. And my dad, as my coach, or as my previous soccer coach, starts showing up to all my track meets. I'm in 9th grade. I'm starting to do really well and actually starting to get some attention around this. So there's this one day where I'm at a track and field meet and I'm running what is going to become my signature race, the 800-yard dash. I'm going, I'm running. I hear from the stands, "Dawn, keep your head up, keep your eyes on the prize. Just go for it, pump those arms." I can hear my dad just like yelling from the stands, and I'm going for it. My heart is racing. I come in 3rd, which at the time did not feel very proud about, but it was what it was. But when I go up to the stands, I see that my dad is sitting next to this couple. And I'm like, "Who's your new friends, Pop?" He's like, "Well, this is Jean and Amber. And their daughters are the 2 that beat you in the race." I was like, "Oh, great. Well, nice to meet you." And they asked, "Who's your coach?" And I say, I don't really have a coach. I just kind of got started and I'm just kind of doing this. And they look at my dad. They say, she doesn't have a coach? Oh, she's going to need a coach. Because if my daughters have been racing like this for the past 5 years and you haven't been training at all, your daughter has potential. And you could see my dad's eyes light up. He, once again, is going to be a coach. He's going to figure out how to do this with me. And so from that day forth, on Saturday mornings, he would take me and 2 of my cousins up to the hills of Santa Clara County, and we would just race. Me being the Trinidadian, the 2 others being Jamaican, 1 girl, 2 boys. And every single weekend we were there, up in the hills, racing, pumping our arms. And because I was getting good at this, I started getting a lot of random nicknames. I would be racing and I would hear from the stand, run, Turbo Toothpick, run. Yes, Turbo Toothpick. Another one of my dad's favorites, run, Black Lightning, go, pump those arms. Every single meet, I don't know where or how they came up with these nicknames, but they were notorious for being there, they being my mom and my dad, notorious for being there, supporting me along, and always being in my corner. But then came the day when I actually had to go off to college. I was being offered different programs, different scholarships. I lived not too far from UC Berkeley, which was offering me a scholarship, but I really wanted to go to UCLA because in my opinion, UCLA was the field of dreams. And unfortunately, my father was also getting very ill. I didn't know if it made more sense for me to stay in Northern California, where my father would be able to watch me race and compete, or to go to Southern California, where I would be amongst other champions and other winners, and potentially in the place where I could go for my ultimate dream, Olympic gold. In my heart, I knew what I needed to do, but it wasn't an easy decision. I decided to sign with UCLA, 6 hours away from where I was living. And my dad and my mom, neither one of them knew if my father would see many more track and field meets. Unfortunately, my sophomore year, my back went out on me. I was injured, and it was the end of my track and field career. An ironic twist of fate, my father, who had been my coach my entire life, ended up receiving medical services at UCLA's hospital for cancer. So while he was slowly withering away, I'd be able to visit him because I was no longer running track and field. I was just going to the hospitals, wishing him well and hoping that he would survive. Unfortunately, he didn't. He passed away my sophomore year in college. And it was devastating. I no longer had my father. I no longer had my coach. I no longer had that man in my life who was there since day one. But I did realize that in these days, when I look for love, when I look for support from that male figure, I know my father is up in the heavens saying, Dawn, pump your arms, keep your eyes on the prize, and know that I always have your back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you. What a lovely story. And I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. But I have to say that is the best name ever, Turbo Toothpick. Oh, I think that's the best thing I've ever heard. Luckily, my dad, unfortunately, also had cancer, but thankfully he came through it and well, he's in remission, and he's in remission at the moment. So long may that last. A little bit more about dad. He's really funny. He's really generous. He's very charismatic. He's like the life and soul of the party. He's also really enthusiastic. Can't imagine where I get it from. And he's also very appreciative of any presents we get him. So it's very nice to give him a present, although really hard to give the man who's got everything a present. But recently it's been dawning on myself and my 2 sisters that he might not actually like the gifts we give him, which is kind of shocking, because we spend quite a lot of time looking at him. he's always saying, when we say, what would you like for Christmas? What would you like for your birthday? He says, no, don't buy me any presents. Don't buy me any presents. And that's like my whole family. All we do is give presents. So we obviously cannot do that. So we buy him whatever we buy him for Christmas and birthdays. And really, how many sweaters can one man wear? But whenever he says, don't buy me presents, we always think he's just being nice and typically British. But for Father's Day, I actually sent him a set of drinks coasters that I spent hours doing on Shutterfly, getting pictures of myself, my sisters, our husbands, my grown-up kids when they were little, and all going through the ages, hours and hours doing it. Sent it over to him. And the only thing, he didn't even say thank you for this particular present, except he did hold up the only coaster that he obviously liked, which was the one of my 2 grown-up kids when they were small, when they were babies, and they were very cute. And we possibly think he might have hidden the rest of the way in a drawer somewhere. So we're thinking maybe he actually doesn't want any presents. And then to add insult to injury, he actually got sent a $20 bill from customs, something to do with FedEx. So really, the gifts that keeps on giving, eh? So moving on, our next storyteller is an award-winning filmmaker. He's a podcast producer, performer, and an educator. He's performed at the Moth and Story Collider, and his work has been shown in too many festivals to name here, not only in America, but across the world as well. He's currently producing his 3rd season of his award-winning podcast, not a pod box, but a podcast, Other Men Need Help, which he describes as Sesame Street about men. His little-known fact about him is that he's never seen The Wizard of Oz, which is kind of shocking. I mean, who hasn't seen The Wizard of Oz? Do you not get forced to by your parents? I'm quite surprised. And it's quite amazing to me that somebody could go through life and not really fully understanding all those references to clicking red shoes and killing the Wicked Witch of the West. But there we go. Some people do. So please give a very warm Yellow Brick Road welcome to Mark Pagán.
I do know that reference. So Yellow Brick Road, I think we're okay with. I know what we're talking about there. Thanks for having me. I'm missing a lot of things with our current situation, with quarantine and everything like that. One of those things, living here in New York City, is I just miss my day-to-day interactions. And traditionally, no matter where I am in the world, but especially here in New York City, old men from foreign countries love to approach me in public. And I've tried to figure out why that is. I think I come across like 72% of the world's population. I'm short and dark. And so they're like, this guy must understand my worldview. And it literally is everywhere. I'll go to a bodega and the guy will be like, where are you from? And I say, oh, well, I'm Latino. And he'll go, no, you're not. I say, what do you mean? He goes, I'm from Yemen. We are brothers. And I'm like, that's amazing. It's really incredible because I've amassed this fraternity of just swarthy men wherever I go. And I guess I could say it's come in handy. But a few years ago, I was on the F train here in New York City, and it was a pretty empty train. I was just sitting there doing my thing, and doors open, and this guy gets on, this old man, and he's like the winner of Mr. Old World. He has this mid-century linen suit, and it's almost like a mandolin is playing behind him. And there's nobody on the train. What happens? Of course, he sits right next to me, and he just launches into conversation like he's known me for years. He's a really beautiful man. He's Eastern European, and this wonderful Slavic language is coming out of him. Of course, I don't understand any of it. What I'm hearing is, and he's just like continuing. And I let him finish his thought, and I say, oh, I'm sorry, I speak English. And he goes, train Manhattan. And I said, yeah, this train is going into Manhattan. And then I go back to what I was doing. And what I was doing was lap reading. That's something I'm sure a lot of you do. It's when you are reading something you are embarrassed to be reading in public. So you read it from your lap so nobody can see what the cover is. And he does exactly what all lap readers fear. He lifts the book to see what the cover says and then reads it out loud. And he's phonetically going through it, and it's only just one word. It's really just one word. And he goes, sword. And that's what the main title is called, SOAR, S-O-A-R. The full title is SOAR, the Breakthrough Treatment to Conquer Your Fear of Flying. And I'm afraid at this point that this man is like, who's targeted me, is gonna, like, he's gonna want to practice his English. I'm gonna have to tell him what the book is about. And he's gonna go, a train, book, coward. And I'll go, yep, you got that right. But that doesn't happen. He ends up getting off at a few more stops. And when he leaves, he tips his fedora and he goes, "Sir." So I've been lap reading this book for many train rides because recently, at this point in my life, I had developed a fear of flying. I was privileged enough to grow up taking flights to go visit family in the Caribbean, or my dad worked abroad, and I loved it. I used to love flying. And there was some point in my early 30s where I got on a flight and my brain said, this could crash. And then every subsequent flight, my brain would go, this will crash. And I had tried what I thought was everything. You know, friends would give me Xanax, I'd do meditation. I would even do this thing where I would stay up the night before a flight to think that when I got on the plane, I'd be so exhausted that I would just crash out. But it just turned into panic with a lot of yawning. And I flat out cannot sleep on flights. I just could never sleep on a flight. It was just high alert, high stakes, every single flight. So I did some research, found out about this book. It's written by a social worker and an ex-pilot. And one of the beautiful things, the reason why this treatment is so helpful, is that basically it targets oxytocin as the relief mechanism to conquer your fear of anything, let alone flying. And so oxytocin is our anti-anxiety hormone. It's released often during moments of deep connection, and usually very physical. So a mother birthing her baby, foreplay, a very deep embrace with somebody, and it prevents the release of stress hormones. And so what this book is proposing to get over your fear of flying is you find a moment of empathic attunement in your life so that you can target the areas, like, whether it's turbulence, whether it's actually arriving at the airport, you target these areas in which you are very afraid, and then you overlay this memory, this empathic memory on top of these triggers, so that the next time you get to the airport, the next time turbulence hits, this memory is playing through you, oxytocin is released. The problem that I'm having is all I can think about, especially with moments of physical connection, is sex with exes. And I'm like, really, my imagination is that deep? I've lived a full life. I can't think of anything else except being physical with an ex. And I don't want to think about an ex-partner and up in the air. And like that, this guy, this Slavic guy from the train shows up in my head going, "Sir, sir," almost like Obi-Wan being like, dig deeper, dig deeper. And it comes to me, my father was an old foreign man. Now, my father's not around anymore. He passed away when I was a teenager, but he was the guy. He was the guy I used to go to for my physical needs. And to give you an example, and the memory that got conjured is up until the point that I was even hitting puberty, in which most boys would never do this. Whenever my dad was home, I would go up to his office and say goodnight to him. I wouldn't with my sister or my mother. It would just be my father. Because what my father did, and this is the memory that came to me like a pile of bricks, is I just step by step, I remember every single detail. I'd go up to see him. My father would put down his glasses, and in Spanish, he would say, "Good night, my son," and grab me. I would be engulfed. I would just, a venomous amount of Old Spice cologne. And he would just caress the back of my head, just calling me hijo. And then I would go to sleep. Now this, in my memory, this was hours, but it probably was about 15 seconds. And I was like, oh my God, old foreign men are my nurturers. Like, if you have 2 passports and hairy arms, you are my squad. And so I'm like, this is the answer here. This is what I have to do. So I start this new relationship with my father from this one memory. And so every night for months, I'm going to sleep and I'm playing. There's an audio component to this book, SOAR, in which the author Tom Bunn walks you through triggers, and you're supposed to go through these memories, whatever that memory that you've chosen, to overlay them on top of them. So he's like, you're walking to the airport, and I'm in my bed at night going, just hug with my dad, hug with my dad. And I'm having this dialogue with him, and I'm remembering more details, and I'm putting myself in like my current adult body in my dad's arms. And I'm just like, I'm going to bed with this every night. And it's really, it's one of the most beautiful moments of my adulthood. Well, I'm doing this, but I have no way to test. Well, I do have a way, but I'm not testing whether this is working. So I'm like, I have to do this. I have to see if this empathic attunement, if this way of conjuring up this memory is actually solving my fear of flying. So prior to trying this technique, for a few years, I'd only been taking regional flights, like 2 or 3 hours. And even in those, I was in high alert, going to New Orleans or whatever it is. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to go old school. We're going to go international. And I get in touch with a friend of mine, and I pick about the most international flight I can pick. And I buy a ticket, direct flight from JFK to Johannesburg. And for those that need a reminder of what the world map looks like, that is 17 to 18 hours in the air, mostly over the Atlantic Ocean, which is most fearful flyers' worst scenario is flying over the ocean. And I bought the ticket, and this is super cheesy, but I said out loud, we're going on a trip, Dad. And I got freaked out leading up to the whole thing. I kept doing this technique. I had no idea whether it was going to work. So day comes, I get to the airport, I get there early. I buy a New York Times. I'm like, no matter what the flight, I've never read a New York Times cover to cover. I'm like, this will probably take 17 hours. So I have something there. But I get on the flight, and almost like it's almost like it was planned this way. I basically have the only 2 seats, like I'm sitting with nobody. And so in my mind, and what I had done with these scenarios in which I'd be taking this international flight, I saw my father sitting next to me. This is pretty cool. I have no idea whether this is going to work. No idea whether this is going to work. I might have a total panic attack mid-flight. Get up in the air, reading my New York Times, doing fine, chilling out, having some wine, watch the movie Creed. We get a few hours into the flight, and the captain gets on and says, ladies and gentlemen, just put up the seatbelt sign because we got some news. There's going to be some bumps up ahead. And my amygdala goes, did you hear that? And I go, put my hand in my heart, and I just go, hug, 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 hug. A few more minutes, we start hitting those first bumps, a little dicey. My amygdala goes again, are you feeling that? Do you feel what's happening here? Put my hand in my heart, I say, hug, 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 hug. More bounces, wherever we are over the Atlantic. Hug, 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 hug. Now, I have no idea how long this turbulence hit. I have no idea how graphic, how aggressive it got. Because at a certain point, I fell asleep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That's lovely. Hug, hug, hug. What a great story. How nice. Now, what I meant to say earlier is we've got our lovely 6 feet apart mug. These are collector items, and somebody who's watching tonight is going to get this. So I'll announce it at the end, and then you can wait with bated breath for it to arrive. I want to call out some people in the chat. We've got Tony and Margot watching, Alan and Kate. Kate's actually told a story on our show before, and Kimberly. And so they're making, please comment, please send some love for everybody in the chat. It's really nice to read those comments. So please just, send our lovely storyteller some love, as we can't do it in person. So my father, although he is really lovely, he's also a type A control freak. And he's the sort of person who rearranges a dishwasher when you've tried to be helpful and put things in. He shouts at people in restaurants, at waiters particularly, which is incredibly embarrassing if you're his daughters. And he argues with salespeople all the time. I remember him coming to stay, and he was on the phone with a mobile sales person trying to get his mobile phone working. And I could only hear Dad's side of the story, but at one point he shouted really loudly, "No, you may not call me Michael. It's Mr. Fowler to you." Poor person. And one of the things I most remember about growing up was Dad going, "No, no, 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 no." Not just one no. It was never just one no. It was always like a whole stream of them. And then it was that awful moment when I realized I had turned into my father when I was doing exactly the same thing to my kids. No, 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 no. Horrible, horrible. So I'm that's a word I'm trying not to say now, is no. So our next performer is an immigrant like me. She's also a comedian, a storyteller who has performed in comedy clubs all over the world. And she recently performed at the National Storytelling Network virtual conference. And she's been a featured storyteller for WGBH Stories from the Stage. Now, she said something very funny with me just recently that was saying that after being diagnosed with COVID-19 a couple of months ago, she was too ill and too afraid to take her dog out. So she cleverly trained him to do his business in her bathtub. Can you believe that? In her bathtub. She wants to assure us, I don't know whether I can believe her or not, that she does not use that bathtub for bathing. But I have to say, I feel any potential guests are very relieved that no one's having visitors at the moment. So please give a virtual, hopefully clean welcome to Srilatha Rajamani.
I did not expect that would be told to people completely in that way. And I don't know. I live in a studio apartment in New York. So, I mean, it's a good thing that I'm not having guests. Let's put it that way. First of all, happy Father's Day to anyone who, who's observing it, who has a dad who wishes to celebrate it. My dad is in India, and yesterday in the morning we had a WhatsApp call, and we had this major argument that I won. And then yesterday in the evening, which was like morning in India, he sends me a WhatsApp message to say that today is his Hindu star birthday, his 80th Hindu star birthday. So in effect, my dad won that argument. So that's like, but that, kind of explains our relationship too. Dad and I are a lot alike. Everyone in our family says I'm like a mini Rajamani. His name is Rajamani, and they call me that. And we both we both jump into things quickly. We are both very, quick tempered. And we also I guess, try to one thing that I'm trying not to do like my dad is to be this over caring person that my dad is. I mean, everyone says caring is good, but I think for my dad, that caring also came from being an eldest son in a family of 8 kids. He started working at 18 years. He was working in a chemical factory. He's a chemist. And, he was used to managing, taking care of the family. And he did that all through my childhood, my college years, my young adult life. My dad was the one who would staple money into my school textbooks in random pages just in case something happened when I was coming home from school. My dad was the one who would go every year in school and college, meet my teachers, shake hands, and introduce himself and say, "I am Rajamani, and this is my, I work here," and he would give them his work card. And, in school, in elementary school, that's fine. But when he does that on your first day of college in front of all the students in class, it makes things very difficult. And that's what my dad used to do. And I just basically, we always fought, and then we always got along because we are too alike not to fight, but also we are too alike that we know each other best. So that has always been our relationship. Now, 20 years ago, and when I moved to America, it was in 1995 for college, for grad school. My dad was extremely he was very unhappy about the whole thing, and things didn't get better over the next few years because I was not able to visit India frequently. I had the H1 visa, and and then I was like, it was very hard to like, if you don't have permission, travel permit to go to India. So I missed a lot of family occasions, including my dad's 60th birthday, and he still kind of talks about it. But one thing that was going to happen around, like this was about 15 years ago, was this my nephew was born in India, and this was his first birth. His naming ceremony was going to happen. Now, in my culture, that's a very important thing. I'm like, my nephew is my brother's son. So as an aunt from the father's side, it is my job to hold his name in front of God and give him his name first. Like, I'm the one who calls him by his name and then writes his name down on a tray with like 9 different grains that are put in there. I write his name down in Sanskrit, and it's like a pretty important thing. So my dad was like, when my sister-in-law got pregnant, my dad would, from that time, for the entire 9 months, he was like, you better make it there no matter what. This is important. You missed everything else in this family, but you have to be there. And all through, like, I basically think I got my travel permit back because my dad wished it so hard. He must have sent somebody to like, at that time it was called INS. He must have sent somebody there to like tell them, hey, my daughter needs to come back, so give her the permit. Because I quite don't know still how I got the travel permit to come back, because people were not getting it for the longest time, but I somehow managed to get it. And I went to India. Now, I hadn't been to India in over 6 years by that time. So I was very excited. And my goal at that time was also, be with my family, be with them, but also to eat, because that is the big thing, like when you come to a different country, it is very hard, to find the foods that you like. And in India, the food culture is very important, street foods and everything, they are like, they were such a big part of my, my childhood and my youth. So I was just like, I'm going to go, I'm going to eat, I'm going to have fun. And I landed in Bangalore, and, my dad was at the airport, and as we are driving back home, I see his there is like a cart selling like street food, like chaat items, like right near my parents' apartment building. And I'm telling my dad, hey, you know what? Once I go home, unpack, and let's go and have some fun here. My dad is like, no, you shouldn't, because things have changed. You might not be able to get used to this food here. And then I'm like, Dad, how can you say that? Like, I grew up in this country. I know everything. I used to like eat, like there used to be this person near my apartment in Bombay who used to make fresh, awesome samosas, but it was not the cleanest place. Like, he used to mix the dough sitting on a very dirty floor. And a lot of the times he wouldn't wear underwear. So, when you'd be sitting on the floor with this, wrapping garment, his man part would be on the dough sometimes. Like, I have grown up eating dick samosas, so nothing else is going to like hurt this body. And I was like very offended, and my dad and I had this massive fight the day I landed. And Dad was basically like, we fought so much that we decided not to talk to each other until the following day, because I had to be, we would all have to like, be there in good mood for the ceremony. So after fighting with my dad, I leave the apartment, go get the food. It was delicious, pani puri. It was amazing. I'm having it, and I'm coming back home. Nothing is happening. I'm good. I had a good night's sleep. And the next day morning, we are all driving, going to the temple. I'm sitting in the car. It's like a big van. I'm sitting in the second row with my dad. And as I'm going around 2 to 3 hours in, and this is like a place which is a bit farther away. The temple is far away from our house. And as I'm going, I'm starting to feel sick. The cold, clammy feeling. My body is kind of wet and cold despite it being a hot day. And I'm just having some discomfort. My dad keeps turning and looking at me, and Dad is like, is anything the matter? Are you feeling sick? And I'm like, no, it's so hot. I just need the air conditioning on. And Dad just keeps looking at me and glaring. And then he is like muttering to himself. She never listens. She never listens to anything. And I'm like, Dad, I'm fine. You say you know everything, but you don't. This is going to be fine. And as we are going, I'm getting more and more uncomfortable, but I can't say anything. We reach the temple, and basically we had to climb about 108 steps to go to the main area where the ceremony was going to be done. And as we are going we are going up, and I'm thinking, I knew that I wouldn't be able to make it all the way up there. So I'm telling my dad, Dad, I think I forgot my wallet in the car or something. I just make some kind of an excuse. I'm running down and I'm going and I'm asking, where is the restroom? Now, this is an old temple, so it was actually an outhouse. So I had to like go through a yard. I went past a well and saw the outhouse, and I went in and there was no running water. So I had to go back to the well, take the water. And as I am bending over to take the water from the well, Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So something happened. And I'm so sorry. There are fireworks in New York City and my dog is not happy about it. I'm very sorry about that. Now here's the thing. It was a ceremony and I had been wearing Indian clothes, which is like multiple layers, beautiful skirts and everything. I was like that when that accident happened, I had to, clean up and everything. And I thanked my fates for, getting me born as an Indian, because I had like multiple layers of skirts. So I could go, still clothed, but not, anyway. I went back, up to the main temple area. I'm sitting in front of God. God knew I was commando, but no one else knew I was commando. I held my nephew. We did the ceremony, and Dad just keeps looking at me throughout. He doesn't say anything. So that happened. And the next day, we were all having, and I was just like, I got away with this. I made it. And, Dad didn't know. And I got away with this. Now, the next day we were having good, normal day at home. It's a summer day and Dad is cutting mangoes. Now, Dad and I both like to eat the skin of fruits. Like we even like to eat the inner layer of the banana. We never throw away the skin. It's a thing about Dad and me. So he is like cutting mangoes and giving to everyone. And when it comes to me, he's just giving me the fruit. And I'm like, Dad, I like the skin. And he says, no, the skin has got a lot of impurities. And then he was like eating the skin. And I was telling you, Dad, like you're eating the skin. So what? I can eat it too. And Dad is like, it's okay for me. You're a foreigner. So yeah, Dad, that's my story. Dad always wins, you guys. I've never been able to. And it's his birthday today. So I'm very glad that I have these memories of Dad. Thank you. I'm Srilatha.
Yay!
Excellent. Happy birthday, happy 80th star birthday to your dad, Srilatha. That's quite a story. Bless him. Just going to remind you that after this next storyteller, I will tell you who's won our lovely mug. Another little story about my dad is that he is really, really appalling at parking cars. Actually, and parking boats too, but we won't go into that. He used to live in London. And for any of you who know, the parking in London is really terrible. And it was kind of embarrassing for us kids to go anywhere with him, because obviously he was always shouting at people and doing things, but driving was the worst, because he'd always drive these big 4-wheel drive SUVs, and he would pass, like, driving around trying to find a parking space to go to a restaurant, and he'd find this really tiny spot, and we go, Dad, no, you can't get in there. You're not good at driving anywhere, and you're not going to be able to get in that tiny space. You couldn't even fit a Mini in that tiny space. He said, no, I can do that. I can get in there. And he could. And the reason he could get in there, it was awful. He'd reverse in and then he would just bump each car forward and back until he got the space big enough that he could actually fit the bloody car. And we'd look at him in horror. He goes, well, that's what bumpers are for. And we'd have to scuttle off to the restaurant and hope to God that nobody saw us doing it. Terrible. I'm very glad he's over in England at this moment. Now, our final speaker tonight is the self-proclaimed ambassador of fun. She's a New York City-based storyteller, writer, and comedian, and a 3-time Moth Story Slam winner. She's performed on PBS, Risk, Mortified, and has even shared the stage with Hannah Gadsby and Trevor Noah. She's the creator and host of the storytelling series and podcast Yum's the Word, which features her homemade ice cream cake. So I'm really bummed that we're virtual and we don't get to eat one. Anyway, her weird little tidbit about herself is kind of interesting because it ties back up to our first storyteller, Dawn, because Robin can actually wiggle her own ears. So we're hoping that maybe she'll demonstrate before telling her story. So please join me for a huge ear wiggling welcome, Robin Gelfenbein.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Regina. And it doesn't take any prodding for me to wiggle my ears. I don't think I actually have ever done it on stage, like IRL or virtually. So I'd be happy to show you. Okay, so I also have to say that I have to like really concentrate. So if I have like a weird face, it's only because I'm focusing on wiggling my ears. Hopefully you can see them. Okay, so can you see? I could do one at a time too, but it might be hard for you. I feel like I'm very elfin right now, or Gelfin. Heyo. Srilatha, when your adorable dog came in and you said that she was afraid of the fireworks, I was like, is she afraid of the fireworks, or is she just not happy because she really wants to be in the bathroom in the bathtub at this moment? I'm not so sure if I know the answer. Anyway, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for letting me wiggle my ears. I also can flare my nostrils. I mean, how random would this be if all I did for the rest of my set was just like show you weird things I can do with different body parts? I'll just flare my nose. I'm not going to get too close to the camera because this is going to be on a replay. Okay, so let me get to my story, and happy Father's Day. And by the way, I made an ice cream cake for my father today, and he was very, very happy with it. So, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell about my dad. So I'm 11 years old, and I've got a red tracksuit on, and I am standing in the last place where I should be, my first basketball practice. All around me, I hear sneakers skidding along the court, and it like reeks of sweat in there. And I am really nervous because standing in front of me is my dad, and he's frustrated, and he has every right to be. I am the oldest of 3 girls. And when I was a kid, I was the guinea pig for all of my father's athletic experiments. And I think he just wanted to see if I had any athletic potential. So he tried to get me involved in all kinds of sports. So he tried to get me to play golf, and I clobbered my head with the putter, the one club you don't swing. He tried to get me to play Foursquare, which was this like non-contact game. I don't know if anybody knows it. It was like there's truly 4 squares and you bounce a ball. So I played Foursquare and I broke my pinky. And then one time I was in an above ground pool, the whole thing collapsed and I got washed down the hill. So when my dad makes me play on an all boys basketball team that he is assistant coaching, he should really like know what he's getting himself into. But my father is just not somebody that you can say no to. And when I was 11, it was like the last thing I wanted to do was let him down. Like he's like 6'3", he's a big guy. And while he is a really nice person, he's a bit of a sleeping bear. So like in a matter of seconds, my father can go from like the Dalai Lama to Alec Baldwin. And it's pretty terrifying. So, because I remember this one time we were at a basketball game and my sister wasn't playing. And like the ref blows the whistle and my dad shoots up out of the bleachers and he screams, "Hey ref, what do you got to do to get a foul around here? Hit it with a goddamn axe." Sits right back down and doesn't say another word. And I am like, what is lurking below? So I know not to say that I'm not interested in playing basketball. And I'm just like, I don't want to piss him off. I'm just going to like go along with it. So I go to my first practice and it's at this elementary school gym. And I am surrounded by this like motley crew of these like 11 and 12-year-old whirling dervishes running all over the court. And I instantly feel out of place because I can't make a layup. I can barely dribble. And I can't breathe because during sprints I have asthma. So after practice, I get in the car, and my dad says to me, how'd you do? And I'm like, you were there. You saw that. That was pathetic. But I don't say any of this. And I was like, I guess I did okay. But meanwhile, like deep down, all I want is to be at home practicing my jazz routine for Danger Zone from Top Gun. But I don't say anything to my dad because I just don't want to upset him or disappoint him. So the season starts and the games are always the same. They put me in for a whopping 2 minutes, and I spend the entire time running up and down the court going, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open. They never throw me the ball. And it's so frustrating because I really want to contribute. I really want to like prove to my dad that like I've got some athletic potential, but the boys won't throw me the ball. And so throughout the season, I feel like I'm just this sort of like lone, like the team's actually doing well, but I'm like, I can't take any credit. Like I'm this sort of like a lone bad news bear, like hanging out on the bench. But the only time I felt like I could like redeem myself was when I would go for a rebound. And I remember one time I went for the rebound, the ball came like flying off the backboard, and I scrambled to the ground to at least get my hands on the ball. I was like, at least let me make contact with this damn ball. And I finally did. And then the boys would just sort of look at me, and my dad was over on the sidelines, kind of like half like applauding me. So it was very frustrating. So a couple weeks into the season, we have our team photo, and we all were given like one khaki shirt that had these red block letters that read Flower Box, because we were sponsored by the local florist. And it's a Saturday morning, and I am running all over the house looking for my lone Flower Box shirt. It is nowhere to be found. And I'm tearing my room apart until I hear, Robin, Amy, Galvin, let's go. And I was like, oh, shoot. It's my dad, screaming for me down the hall. So I grab the only other khaki shirt I have. I put it on, I zip up my winter coat, and I get in the car. And I don't say a word to him because I know what I'm wearing is like the last shirt that I should be wearing. So we get to the gym. All the boys are lined up on in front of these like blue mats in the elementary school gymnasium. And they're all trying to be like cool and tough. And I am dreading taking off my jacket because I know what I'm wearing is just fodder for these 11 and 12-year-old boys. And finally, I have no choice. And I unzip my coat to reveal not a khaki shirt that reads Flower Box, but a khaki shirt that reads Girl Scout Cookie Champion. And I am, in any other setting, so incredibly proud of this honor because my father wouldn't let me, he wouldn't take the forms to the office. He was like, no handouts for you. You're going door to door. And I was like really shy as a kid. So I was so proud of this. And the boys started laughing at me and they were teasing me. And they're like, nice shirt, Galvin. I'll take a couple of boxes of Thin Mints and some trefoils. And they continue to tease me as though a Flower Box shirt is infinitely more masculine than a Girl Scout Cookie Champion shirt. And meanwhile, my father is standing right there and he's just like, this kid's not mine. He's just mortified on my behalf. So the season continues. I spend every game for the 2 minutes going, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open. They're like, we know you're open, Galvin. You're always open. And finally, it's the last game of the season. I go in for the last game of my basketball career, doing the same thing, running up and down the court, completely out of breath. And then Randy Zano does the unthinkable. He throws me the ball. And I am standing there watching this ball come hurling towards me. And my heart is racing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is my chance. Maybe I do have some athletic potential. Maybe I can show my dad. Maybe he'll be really proud of me. Because over on the sidelines, I can see my dad. He's going, go, go, go. And finally, the ball's getting closer and closer. And I'm thinking, and then I just do the one thing that like, excuse me, as the ball's like getting closer and closer, I do the one thing that any girl who's 11 years old and has been mocked all season by her all-boys basketball team would do? I duck. And the ball goes sailing over my head. The ref blows the whistle. The boys are like, "Are you serious?" They're so angry at me. And I like slink off the court. I don't even look at my father because I was like, he's going to be so angry at me. And I get over to the sidelines and I approach him, and his back is facing me. And I'm like, "Dad, I'm really sorry. You know, I didn't mean to let you down, but like, I still think I'm really good at basketball." And he turns around and he is cracking up. And he goes, "Yeah, you got no future in this sport." And we both laughed, and I was like, "You know, he says, but did you try your best?" I was like, "I mean, up until a few minutes ago, I did." And he goes, "That's all I can ask for, Rob." And after that, my dad gave up on me. He moved on to my middle sister, Jill, and she had an unbelievable athletic career. She was an all New England soccer player. She was the second Division I student athlete to ever go to 2 Final Fours in the same year. And she played on the UConn women's basketball team, who went undefeated and won the national championship. And I was like, "You got your athlete. You got your athlete." Like, I'm out of here. And, you know, it took time, but over the years, I realized like my dad wasn't just testing me. He just wanted to get to know me and spend time with me in ways that were familiar to him. And ultimately, he was incredibly proud of me because I stuck it out. I mean, it was something I had absolutely no interest in doing, but I really did try my best. And I finally discovered that like somewhere under that big sleeping bear he's really more of a teddy bear. And as far as my dancing, I danced for 20 years. I nailed my danger zone jazz routine, not without pulling my groin. And eventually I found my flower box shirt. Meanwhile, this was like 7 years ago. And I thought I would show it to you since I'm at my parents' house. So this is my flower box shirt, my favorite number 5. But more importantly, I've got my Girl Scout cookie champion shirt. Hey, I mean, they're seriously like exactly like the same color. And let me just say, it's official. It does say Cookie Rodeo shirt, but it says Cookie Rodeo champion because the Girl Scouts did themes each year. So I was incredibly proud of that. So thank you.
Oh, I love that story, Robin. That's so funny. And I can't see that flower box is a very macho thing to wear, I have to say. I thought a rodeo would be much more macho. It's quite funny, the whole Girl Scout cookie thing over here, because we have Girl Scouts in England. I was actually kicked out of the Girl Scouts for not marching properly, but we don't have the Girl Scouts cookie. So it's a complete phenomenon that I had to be accosted by when you enter any grocery store locally. So that's it. We've all had amazing, amazing stories. Thank you so much. I'm going to announce our winner of the lovely mug for this week. And she's watching, we hope. It's Margot Miles. So Margot, we will send you an email to ask for your address, and then I can mail this to you. How lucky are you? Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody. And just while I'm just telling you what's happening next week, we're going to bring all our storytellers back in a minute and let them, I mean, all their contact details and websites are, well, not contact, but websites are down below in the description underneath this YouTube video. And we're going to get them just to come back on, say goodbye, and let us know what things they've got coming on, if they've got a new podcast or any other shows coming up. And then you can go and follow them and go and watch them again, because they are superb. Okay, so next week we're going to have a show to celebrate Gay Pride Weekend. So please come back. We've got some really good storytellers from the LGBTQ community. I can't say that, terrible. So that'll be really worth watching. And we're going to do it at the earlier time of 6 o'clock again in Pacific time, which is 9 o'clock Eastern time, and whatever time that is in the middle of the country, haven't got a clue. So I'm sure we can put that out as well. So now I'd like to bring all our storytellers back one at a time. So I'm going to go in the order that they came. So first of all, I'm going to bring back Dawn Fraser. And if any parents happen to be locally, then they're welcome to come on too. And have you got a parent there?
I have a parent. Would you all like to meet my mom?
Oh, yes, we definitely would.
All right. I believe she's coming. While she's on her way here, you might need to circle back to me in a second. But people can find out about me at dawnjfraser.com. As you mentioned earlier, I host a show called Barbershop Stories, which is a live show. And I'm so happy that it's going to be a podcast in a couple of weeks. So that will be out, a special series podcast in a couple of weeks. And in the fall, I'll be launching a new show called A New Dawn. So to find out and to continue just keeping updated with all that I'm doing, just check out dawnjfraser.com or that'll be the best place to find me.
Lovely. Thank you, Dawn, and thank you for your excellent story, and big hug about your dad.
Thank you.
Our next storyteller, then, we'd like to say thank you very much, and goodbye to Mark Pagán.
No parents, but we are pet sitting a pigeon. This is Valentina. So we are temporary bird parents. So that's in lieu of my mom being here. But for those that are interested, wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribe to Other Men Need Help and listen, but also subscribe, because in a few weeks we are launching season 3, which goes into the secrets of adult male best friendships. And it is a wild, wild season. We've been working on it for 2 years. So we're excited to share it. We can't wait for everybody to hear it. And thanks for having me. And I will watch Wizard of Oz now.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. It should be compulsory for all children. You have to watch The Wizard of Oz. And I can't believe that you've got a pigeon as a pet at the moment. That's hilarious. I only think of pigeons in Trafalgar Square pooing everywhere. That's my only thought about a pigeon. And now I'd also like to bring back our lovely, lovely storyteller, Srilatha Rajamani, who's hopefully going to come back with her dog.
He's been here on my lap, and I really am sorry. It's kind of noisy outside near my building, and I am very sorry for interrupting the story and bringing him on my lap. And thank you so much. This was really fun.
Oh, it was just lovely to have you, Srilatha, and lovely to see your dog. Oh, I'm going to quickly pop back to see Dawn before we say goodbye to Robin, because she's got her mum there.
Hello. There we go. So this is my mama.
Hello, this is my beautiful daughter. Don't tears to my eyes when she's talking about her dad, you know. It brings back so much memories. Okay.
Yeah.
I enjoyed all your stories. Robin, yours was funny.
The Srilatha.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Mark.
you. Well, it's lovely to meet you.
And
Mrs.
this is our pup, Bella. She's also very much in the mix at all times.
Bless her. I like it's a pet show. Well, very nice to meet you. And then, so last but not least, I'd like to say thank you and goodbye. And then Robin can tell us all the amazing things that she's doing with her very busy life. I don't know how she managed to get it all in, because I'm also doing a storytelling class with her. She's incredible. So thank you to Robin Gelfenbein.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Regina. And I've got my favorite basketball coach here. That's Roger, and that's my mom, Margie. And Dad, do you have any words to defend yourself?
No, whatever Robin said is absolutely true.
Say that again.
Whatever Robin said must be true.
That's right.
I told her never to tell a lie.
That's true.
I've got that on recorded tape now, so you can use it now. Whatever you said is true. Good to have that.
Exactly. Yes. So I'm very lucky because my parents are very good sports about me teasing them here and there. But you end up being it's not a mean story about you. It's a very loving story about you.
It is. It turns out that I knew how to coach. If you think about daughter number 2, she did okay.
That's true.
With the same coach.
Just didn't know how to coach this
That's
daughter.
true. That's true. I wasn't meant for the basketball
Robin
court.
needed an acting coach instead.
That's true. Yeah, that's right. And I wanted to also share. So I have my Yums the Word podcast, and they're all funny true stories. And you can find out everything about Yums the Word Show at yumstheword.show.com or on social at any Yums the Word Show. We call it Ice Cream Social Media. And we have a YouTube channel. Dawn and Mark are on both the podcasts and the YouTube channel if you want to hear more of their stories. And I have to give a plug for both. I mean, for all of them. I mean, I love all of these storytellers. I'm friends with all of these people. I absolutely love Barbershop Stories. It was one of my favorite shows to do, and I'm excited that the podcast is coming out. And Mark, I talk about his podcast all the time. Other Men Need Help is so great, and it's such a delight, and I cannot wait for the next season. I got to sit in on some production meetings, and I know it's going to be fantastic. And follow Srilatha online because she is a gem, and as you saw, extremely funny. So yeah. I was just going to say that. And then if anybody's interested in storytelling, I teach storytelling, and Regina and Claire are 2 of my wonderful students. She's doing all right. She's a pretty good student too. So anyway, thanks again.
Thank you, Robin. Nice to see you, Marge and Robin's dad.
Wednesday.
Robin is an excellent storytelling teacher, so I thoroughly recommend her storytelling class if you're in any way interested in stories or improving your storytelling. She's really good. So that's it then. I just left to say thank you to our very clever tech guru for all the technical side. And also I want to give a plug out to Julia Marks, who sings our lovely 6 Feet Apart song, who just lets us use it. So if you ever want to check out some good music, she's got some really nice stuff out. So that's Julia Marks, and she sings our 6 Feet Apart song. So that's it. That's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for watching. And we look forward to seeing you for our Gay Pride show next weekend at 6 o'clock Pacific time. Thank you for all our storytellings. Bye.
Six feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.